And we're live!
Hey,
Hello.
everybody! How's it going, guys? We're talking about that good RWBY show again, but before we get into that, we should tell the good people who we are. Hi, I'm Brian. I do audio things. I voice Neptune, Vasilius, and Rubia Burged. And who I got with me today?
My name is Ian. I help admin for the KRWBY Discord server, and I help run the logistics behind this podcast because otherwise Brian would literally bury himself in the ground while
This
working on
is
the
true
audio
fact.
team. So,
Fact.
yeah, I'm his life support unit.
I may or may not have to work on both Ruby Abridged and Nondescript Winter Holiday 2 at the same time in the next coming
Hey,
weeks.
isn't that nice? For work.
More unpaid work.
Yep.
Yes.
It's exposure, Brian.
Yes,
It's
you're getting
almost like
paid an
nobody gets
exposure.
Ah, yes. That thing that musicians live off of.
Yeah, that thing that you can absolutely pay the rent with. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
All right, who else we got here? We got
I'm
next?
I'm here. I'm a person that is on this podcast, and that's all I do.
Yep.
That's Forrest, guys. In case you haven't figured it out.
How is it you've never learned to introduce yourself?
I think I just did. I did a pretty good job of it right there, Ian. I don't know what you're saying.
I guess that means I'm up next. What's up, guys? It's Beau. I voice Winter and Ilya for Rubia Burged, slash KRWBY.
I'm so happy it's catching on.
No, stop.
The head of the VR short department and one of the lead writers for the VR shorts as well, and co-host of Perpetually Ajar. Woo!
Yeah. And we got a special Gerst today.
Hi.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Zazumi. I voice Raven.
Yeah. And you also do like some streamy things, right?
Yeah, part of the stream team and all that jazz. Jazz hands.
Yeah.
Jazz hands or Zaz hands, but
Oh my god.
I was waiting for that.
I've been hanging out with RTO way too much.
Oh, okay.
Man. So yeah, welcome everybody. Tonight we are talking about RWBY Volume 7, Chapter 7, Worst Case Scenario. As always, the latest episode, the episode that we are talking about, is only available for first members on the Rooster Teeth site. So if you're not a first member and you care about spoilers, maybe don't watch this podcast. Maybe wait a week to watch this podcast. It's
Here's your
okay. You can
spoiler
come
warning.
back. Yeah. There's your spoiler warning for you. We're going to talk some spoilers.
All the spoilers.
Yup. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say because I was taking my notes while I was eating leftover turkey, so I was typing with like my knuckles on my pinkies, and so a lot of the first like half of this episode is like hardcore like I put robot friend, but it's RBTFRN. So it's really shorthanded, so I'm gonna try and understand what I type.
Try and translate your
Jeez.
stenographic notes there.
But yes.
All right. So, yeah. Episode opens up and Ironwood has ordered a temporary ban on public gatherings following the attack. He has also issued a curfew.
Also,
So I guess-
there's a robot hand that pets Penny's head. I
Yes.
wanna-
No, that's the robot
that's
friend that I
literally
was talking about.
the
That's-
first thing. It's kind of adorable.
It is really truly adorable because it's literally the fans going, there, Penny.
Mhm.
Is it Yang's hand?
It looks like it. So the funny thing is, I noticed that it's funny that you point that out because I just noticed it on this last watch through like 20 minutes ago. That it looks like the hand model from the wrist down to the fingers is exactly the same model that Yang had previously on her, on her robot arm.
It's almost like animating mechanical hands is kind of hard, and they might have wanted to
Yeah,
might have
that's
wanted
fair.
to reuse that asset.
I'm not bashing. I'm just saying it was funny that it looked the same.
I mean, you can give an in-universe explanation too. I mean, it's hard to design
Yeah,
robot hands.
Ironwood was just lazy and was like, "Oh, that Yang girl. Yeah, just like give her whatever we got on hand."
Whatever you have
Oh.
on hand.
No.
Oh yes, it's happening. It's absolutely and Yang even makes a hand pun later on in the episode too.
Yeah, it's
She
just
does.
She's all
too good.
Andy semblance.
Oh my god.
Just Yang, why are you so punny? Really?
Because she's voiced by she's voiced by Barbara.
I know. Just it hurts sometimes, okay? It hurts.
It's the good kind of hurt.
So
Where's the dad jokes?
I guess my first question is, and I think we'll probably kind of continue to come back and revisit portions of this question over the course of this podcast. But what are your thoughts on these moves that Ironwood is making? Like issuing like this temporary ban on public gatherings and whatnot. Like he just keeps making these moves that really are not a good look for him or Atlas. Like, I mean, granted, you understand the reasoning behind it, but do you think that he's not putting enough emphasis on how important the happiness and the comfort of Mantle is to not just his longevity as with his seat on the council, but also to protect Mantle from Grimm?
I think you have a fair point there, but I think that he's also playing directly into Watts' hands. Like this is like textbook Ironwood here, but you would think that Ironwood would give a lot more thought to what would be happening. He is thinking solely about the goal, not necessarily the consequences of the actions he has to take to get there.
Which might end up affecting the goal that he is trying to get. Like what I don't get, like the opening scene, right? He's saying, "Oh, we're having an embargo, or not an embargo. We're having a curfew, right? We're gonna have a curfew, and people are stay off the streets." And we know why he's doing that. We know that it's in his mind to keep people safe. But what we see of that, the scenes that we are shown, are scary aircraft flying overhead. Presumably homeless children or like kids maybe out too late, hiding behind a dumpster from soldiers, and then people being chased down the street by these are not the kinds of things that are going to endear your policies to people, right?
Yeah, and I'd also like to point out too that like later on in the episode, like Winter proposes declaring martial law. And it's like, but if you go and look at the state that Mantle is in currently, it's kind of like it already pretty much looks like martial law.
Yeah. Well, when you have military soldiers enforcing a curfew, that's one of the things they do when they invoke martial law. Like that's one of the big things.
Yeah.
So
I would say, arguably, I like his actions make sense. Like realistically, they do make sense. Like I think personally, the only issue that I have is that I feel like he should be at least filling people in a little bit to an extent. Because right now it's they've publicly said, oh yeah, there's Penny's been framed and whatnot. She's not it wasn't her that did it. Like, instead of it just being like, oh yeah, no public gatherings, blah blah blah, like maybe make a public statement of the reason we are doing this curfew is because we are attempting to weed out the people who are responsible for this, blah blah blah. Like, it really feels like they're deliberately leaving people in the dark, which is really the only issue that I have, is that I think that he's kind of confusing what should and shouldn't be like said publicly. And he's just kind of like, because realistically, even if it wasn't like Salem's people that were after them, Like, you're creating more panic by not informing them than you would if you were just honest with them and told them, hey, this is what we're doing. It's for your safety as well as, like, everyone's safety.
Mhm.
Like, please, please just work with us on this. We'll have more answers as soon as we're able to get them. Like,
well, but who's gonna believe that though? Like, your authoritarian guy who's cracking down, on your city says, "Oh, our person was framed. We're trying to look for the people responsible." Anyone listening to that in Mantle's probably going to think, "Oh, they're trying to find a good scapegoat." Aha.
I mean, realistically though, I would say it's better to make a statement publicly than to not say anything at all, because then it looks like you have something to hide.
Well, yeah. I think either way, he's kind of like written himself into a corner.
Or
yeah. What do you think, Zaz?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's like they're kind of setting him up to become that bad guy. They already framed Penny and all that stuff, and he's kind of walking into their hands, I think. He's just he's doing all these things. I know it's for the people, but they don't see it that way. They see it as a more controlling, and it's like, what's going on? Why is, like, the people who are supposed to protect us, what are they doing? Like, why is all this happening? And he's just kind of I don't know if he has a choice. Like, he feels like he doesn't, but I feel like even if he did inform people, they still wouldn't see it like that. They'd probably be like, "Oh, he's controlling," and maybe a rebellion.
Perhaps. Yeah. I think so. Kind of moving into this next scene. Like, obviously, we find out that people want Penny deactivated, which is heartbreaking. Because
but it makes sense from their perspective.
It makes sense from their perspective, but like from our perspective, knowing what we know about Penny, it's like their people are basically demanding the death penalty for Penny. And
yeah.
So
do they understand?
Well, they probably do.
I want to
point
point
they don't
out
know her personally, but
I want to point out real fast, just because Ultra Godzilla fan and I have been at each other's throats about this topic since the beginning of the volume. I agree that Ironwood is not doing the right thing. I still trust him because I think that his heart is in the right place. I don't think his pride has anything to do with it. Like, if his pride had something to do with it, then he would have cared what people thought of him. And he doesn't.
I gotta agree with Beau on this one. I don't think pride has anything to do with his decision making. I think he's just, he's not seeing the trees for the forest right now.
I would also like to go back to the fairy tale origins, Wizard of Oz here, and remind people that what the Tin Man was lacking was a heart.
That's also fair.
Yeah, except, not to skip so far ahead, this is a twist on Tin Man, because our Tin Man doesn't want the heart that he has.
That's fair enough.
He says so. He says so himself, that his humanity feels like it's the weakness that Salem doesn't have.
Well, not just his, but humanity's humanity is the weakness. Like our willingness to
I feel like he
not
was more so
do what in
talking
his
about
mind
himself, because he was too scared to do what's necessary.
Yeah, no, that's probably. I mean, he's probably talking about himself, and he's also talking about like just humans in general. I think because what he's basically saying is like sometimes that gets in the way of doing, the right thing, or the thing that will lead to victory. We don't do because, we would feel bad about that, or it would harm people or something, or it's interesting that because as the Tin Man, right, not having a heart, that's like the origin of it, like that's the fairy tale behind his character. It's more like his persona is this heartless authoritarian Tin Man kind of thing, but like he's not that character, right? That's how people perceive him. That's certainly how he's presenting himself to the people of Mantle, but
because he wouldn't be losing this much sleep and being this stressed if he genuinely didn't care.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing, is that's the persona, that's the facade that he's putting up. But like, if like especially after this episode, if like Oscar were to go up to him and say, "I'm so disappointed in the decision that you've made," I feel like he would take that real bad. Like I feel like that wouldn't be a good place for him mentally. So he definitely still cares. At the very least, the people that are closest to him, or like if Winter said, like, "Sir, I think that you're making the wrong decision," I feel like there's a very small handful of people that still might be able to get through to him, but they're not the ones that are speaking up. The ones that are speaking up are the people that he genuinely is like, "No, you're an underling. I don't care."
Yeah, like I think at least my interpretation of it is because he said it in earlier episodes is that he does not care how Mantle views him. Like he's basically saying, I don't care how much personal damage I have to take in order to get this done. Right? But I think something that's really key that he's missing is because he is kind of the de facto head of Atlas, his social standing, especially among the people of Mantle, is actually really key to him getting done what he needs to get done.
Mm-hmm.
Which unfortunately he's deciding to throw to the winds, as it were.
Right. And that's a real concern. I don't think he realizes just how important his social standing and how he's viewed in Mantle. I don't think he understands just how important that is to achieving his goal.
I don't necessarily
Yeah.
think he underestimates how important it is. I think he's at the moment taking it for granted. I think that might be a better way to phrase it.
No,
I think they're kind of the same
I think
thing,
he's I actually think he's genuinely missing the point. Like we kind of like, not to skip ahead too far, but like we saw it in the end of the episode where he's talking about how, you know, during the fall of Beacon, you know, he was there, his military was there, but he was powerless. He could do nothing. The way he talked about Salem, it sounded like a man who was obsessed.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I rescind that particular comment, but the point is he does need to get he needs to shift his perspective, and if he doesn't get things right in Mantle, which it seems has now become unfortunately the priority, he won't get Amity Tower going, and it's not going to get done on time. That much is obvious.
Well,
You know,
and even if he gets it done on time, like what is he? His end plan is to launch a satellite, right, to tell the world about Salem. You know, Atlas first, and then the world.
Yeah.
But how is he gonna do? Like he is ignoring the damage that he is doing to his personal representation to the people of Mantle, right? That's half the people that he's going to try and convince a few, you know, weeks down the road that, oh yeah, there's this really bad person who exists, and she's like this magical demonic thing who control. Like his whole plan is to convince the world that Salem exists so that they can fight her together. But he is destroying any credibility he has right now, so that when he does, if they do launch the satellite and he tells the world, well, who's going to believe him?
Well, not necessarily who's going to believe him, but who's going to care.
No, who's going to believe him?
Yeah.
Like, I think people, like, if they believed him, they'd care a great deal. But, like, I agree with Forrest. I think that he's right. His reputation is going to destroy his credibility. And people are going, like, and people are likely to see that as an excuse for his negligence in alleviating the suffering of all the people in Mantle.
I think the only way that he'd be able to get it back is if his announcement of the Amity Coliseum satellite and Salem came with his resignation attached.
No, I have a different solution. I think he would get his credibility back if he made that announcement while standing with Robin.
Yeah. I think if he and
They're
Robin
gonna have to
can
get her on
stand
board.
side by side, then I think that would up his credibility again.
Yeah.
Because if it comes down to, oh, they're standing together, they're aligned together. Like obviously, like we trust Robin. Robin was our choice. So if she's decided that he's trustworthy enough to work with, then maybe we should listen to what he has to say.
Mhm.
I don't
There
know.
has to be a reason. Either that, or they could just think that, oh, he's gotten to her too.
Mhm.
Maybe, but
That's also a possibility, which is it seems the cleanest to me that it would have to be like, and this will be my last act as the keeper of this seat. I now abdicate to Robin, who will
Well,
see you the rest of the way
I don't think
through.
that's his decision, though. I don't think you get to choose who takes your place.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I mean, well, and also too, like him stepping down at a critical juncture like that would be a bad plan because he's the head of the Atlas military. He is the most
Yeah.
experienced military leader in the world. Like if they're about to lead a whole military charge against Salem, you probably
Want
want
him
the
in
most
charge.
experienced military leader in the world.
Well, but the thing is I don't know that him stepping down from the council necessarily means he's stepping down from being general of the military. I just
Which
think
is-
he's not going to be on the council anymore.
Mm.
Yeah, I would
It
think
could
that
be
he-
a
Well, remember
He
he
would just
holds
have to
2
answer to the
seats on the
council.
council, one for the school, one for the military.
Yeah.
yeah.
So his position as head of the military and as head of the school seems to give him 2 seats. Like a seat on the council comes with those jobs, it seems like.
Possibly,
I
yeah.
don't know
Not-
that he can I don't know that he can retain I don't think that he can step down from the council and retain those positions.
Well, they might have to separate because it seems like the way
Mhm.
Atlas is set up, right? The school and the military are one and the same, right? The leader of the school is the leader of the
Mhm.
military is the leader of the school, right? They're the same position,
Right.
but they could theoretically split those and say, okay, the the military general is going to be one position, and then chairman of the council is going to be a separate position that's not the same guy or the same person.
Mhm.
You know, it could be Robin.
Yeah,
It
because
could
that's
be
definitely a conflict of interest.
we know Jacques is going to be vying for that spot, obviously, as we see,
Right.
later
One
on.
thing-
So we'll get
One
to
thing
that,
I want to say is, it could just be me misinterpreting it, but I never thought that I would say, but I'm really glad that Winter's not the one calling shots because she absolutely seems down with, yeah, let's declare martial law. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and incite this
That-
chaos. Like,
I-
we're going to
I
help
like-
them, but,
I'm
like, she definitely, the vibe I've been getting from her all season is like, yeah, this is what we should be doing.
See,
That's
under
not quite what
normal
I've been getting.
circumstances, I would agree. But while I was taking notes, I caught a little moment that I
Is
thought
it
was
the moment with Clover?
the moment with Clover.
So when Nora is calling Ironwood out during her
No.
go off moment, there's this like moment where her and Clover like share a look of like, she's right.
No,
Like-
it's not that moment actually. But it does go hand in hand. So, like, it's also we're just as we continue to move forward here. So the Happy Huntresses are commandeering Atlas military dust shipments. They're just basically
living up
stealing
to
trucks.
the Merry Men
Uh,
and
also-
Robin Hood.
Lamb Girl has like a pocket dimension in her hand,
Yup,
Uh,
which is pretty cool.
which is that's a thing, I guess.
That seems very fitting considering her fondness, like disappearing with the herd, sort of thing, or just like wolf, not necessarily wolf and sheep, but like disappearing into the herd and being unseeable.
A
At the very
truck
least.
and lamb's clothing.
Yeah, truck and lamb's clothing. There you go. That's the analogy I was searching for.
It's really funny because the first thought that I had when I watched the episode when it was like, oh, they're putting everyone in the backs of these trucks. Like, what happens if like Blake and Yang are in the back of the truck and she sucks it into the black hole?
They're just in the pocket dimension now.
I guess they're kind of stuck there with not much else to do, and I don't think we're
went-
gonna be able to watch on RWBY what actually happens in there. You might have to read fan
I
fiction
went
for that.
into D&D terms of just like, well, pocket dimensions or like portable holes do not have oxygen, so they would not be able to breathe. So
Well, but that's why they were tossing the personnel out of those trucks, though. That's why they were.
Ah.
But those were robots.
yeah, they were throwing robots out. They're all driven by robots.
I
Well-
mean, they would have thrown the people out too, probably.
They would have
yeah,
thrown the people
I
out,
would
too.
hope. Or I'd like to see a chibi episode on this, like spending a day in the pocket dimension.
And May has invisibility, but not just like turning herself invisible, but like creating an invisible field.
Yeah.
which is
Yeah,
super
that's
cool. Which explains how
pretty cool.
her and Joanna were sneaking up back in episode like 4 or
Mhm.
5 or whatever. 5 Sparks.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
All good powers for anti-establishment
Yep.
renegades.
Yeah,
Um.
absolutely.
So, Robin is stealing dust shipments bound for Amity, and the suppliers in Mantle, because of all the chaos in Mantle, are refusing to sell the Atlas military the goods they need until Mantle is properly repaired. So the Amity project is effectively stalled. Ironwood's really upset by this. This is also where Winter proposes declaring martial law, and Nora goes off.
Nora calls her out.
Can we talk about real fast how Sam Ireland, like bless, she is so good in this scene. Like I feel like she really sold the show, like with this scene.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's one of my favorite moments probably of the season, just because of how like real it felt, like the emotion that Nora was showing, and like how much this obviously means to her, even though like we still don't necessarily understand why this necessarily means so much to her. But she's been the one since the first episode of this volume. She's been the one speaking in favor of Mantle, you know, being like, you need to tell people, you need to at least be like a little bit nicer to them, because like they're half of the people that are supporting you right now, my dude.
Yeah,
Like,
it makes me wonder about if we're gonna get like a Nora origin story, right? Because we got
was
Ren's
definitely
origin
the
story.
vibe I got. I feel like the reason that Nora went off like this is because what Ironwood's doing hits real close to home for her.
mm-hmm. What do you think?
She seemed like she was homeless, basically, in
Yeah.
Ren's origin story, and she just wandered into his town.
I mean, she wandered kind of far. I'm still wondering how she got like, because this fight seems very, very personal to her, which makes me feel like she must have come from Mantle.
I don't necessarily
or another authoritarian area.
I don't think it's necessarily that. I do think that Nora has a very strong and emotional sense of justice, and she's very empathetic with other people. And watching other people get trodden on like this and have to obey strict curfews when, you know, Nora is just such a go with the flow, I do what I want, pretty much whenever I want, pancakes, kind of person, that, you know, she can very much empathize with and understand people under these circumstances, and that's very important to her.
That's a good point.
I'm gonna have to disagree, because I think historically Nora has really just been a comic relief character. And we haven't really dug a lot into her past. The only little bit of her past that we know about is how her past has been connected to Ren, when we got Ren backstory. So we don't really know, like, you know, we have a sense of her. We have a sense of, you know, her flamboyantness, her, you know, just all around be happy. But I think we also know, just here in real life, that a lot of the time the people who laugh the most, who seem the happiest, are often the people who have, you know, some really dark things in their past, or have some things going on. You know,
well, it's a defense mechanism of sorts.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm not discounting that that there might be such a past, but I really didn't want to speculate as to what that might be, given that we have not much else to go on.
I don't know what it. I don't know what exactly her past is, and I really can't speculate on that either. But I do think that, based off what we know about Nora has no reason to get this serious about an issue, this heated about an issue, unless it's something that is really close to her, something that she really cares about. Because historically, when we've passed through places that have been affected by Grimm, and whatnot, I don't know that we've ever really seen Nora mad, and we've definitely never seen Nora furious, at least not until this episode. And
Yeah.
that's a very out of character thing for her, and I don't think that her anger here is a coincidence. I feel like there's a lot more at play here, and I'm almost positive it has to do with there's something that Ironwood is doing that's really hitting close to home for her.
Yeah, oppression, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just like that we're getting some Nora development. Like one of our major complaints, I think, through not to rehash Volume 5, but one of our major complaints, I think, on this podcast was like, she's sort of fallen back to this, oh, she's the comic relief character. We need a joke here. Let's have Nora say it.
Right.
Is kind of
that. I think that was
our that's kind of like all her
that was our complaint back in Volume 5. Yeah.
Did. Right. And this season, she's largely done kind of the same thing. Like she's, a lot of the jokes go to her character or, possibly Yang, but this is a totally different side of her that I'm really glad that we're scratching just, below the surface.
Right.
For below the surface level. Oh, she's the jokey, funny one who does all the anime trope, like she turns into a statue and Ren picks her up, and that was a good. I'm not saying the jokes have been bad; they've been quite funny, but
oh no, they've been really good.
To see. It's good to see more than just that.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, Sam definitely said. I think it was back at not NYCC, but it was a con maybe like 4 or 5 months ago. And she said that she was excited for this volume because there was going to be some serious Nora development. So like I'm glad that we're seeing that. I'm hoping that that's not it. I'm hoping that it still continues to happen because I'm really liking where they're going with the character.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be it. I don't think it's because we see. So there's another part of the scene right towards the end, I think, where Ironwood gives his. Or do we want to move forward into that?
Yeah, I want to get to a couple things before we get into that.
Yeah.
So after Nora has her big outburst, RWBY pleads with Ironwood to not declare martial law, and essentially says the exact same thing that Nora said, just a lot nicer.
and not as yelly.
Yeah.
she's the nice, let's express this in a smile and
good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to point out real fast, actually, because it's still part of this sequence. Has nothing to do with the plot, but you and I, Brian, actually both were talking about it when we were watching it for your first time, is the camera movement.
Yes! The camera work.
Didn't it do
God, it looked so good.
Didn't Nora do like a 360-degree shot?
No, there was like this beautiful shot where who all was in it? It was like
Crow. It was Crow. It slid back to Clover. It slid to the right to RWBY, and then it slid further to the right to Nora, and then it pulled back to reveal all of them.
Yeah, it was just one big continuous shot as like moving from one character to the next. It was beautiful.
You know, actually, real fast, just because we're talking about shots, my second favorite, that was probably my favorite shot just of this volume because of how dynamic it was. But actually, and I don't think we mentioned it back during the episode, but when we saw Team Funky, the Team Funky fight, the entire sequence of Team Juniper and then Oscar fighting Team Funky, that entire sequence of the fight was only 3 camera shots. There were only 3 cuts.
No way.
Yep, there were 3 really long camera shots, and they were beautifully done.
Damn, Rooster Teeth. That is some A game right there.
Yep. But so Nora tries to play, RWBY tries to play kind of devil's advocate and be a little bit more.
So they're like the Atlas. We find out that the Atlas military is aware of Tyrion. He's a serial killer. Oh boy, what a surprise!
I couldn't have seen that one coming.
And he escaped during a prison transport that was on a prison transport that was attacked by Grimm. Hadn't been seen since.
Gee, that
RWBY's
sounds like such a
well, we've seen him. He crazy, and he works for Salem now.
They're like, are you sure? And she's just like,
At any point did like Crow and RWBY say, like, well, I mean, we know he exists because like we kind of cut his tail off.
Yeah.
That's the thing that happened.
So when Ironwood says Proofer didn't happen, they showed the tail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Crow's still carrying it around as a memento. Remember that time I got poisoned and you had to like carry me up a mountain?
So they debate about whether or not to tell the people of Mantle about Tyrion, and that's when Ironwood goes off. And he's like, no, we cannot open up about the Amity Project, because if we do that, it risks Salem's forces trying to stop it and sabotage it. And if we tell the public about Salem, then we risk falling to the Grim before we have Amity Tower up to reconnect all of the people of Remnant.
I mean,
right?
He's not wrong necessarily
No,
about all of these
He's
points.
not. Yeah, he's absolutely not wrong. But it does.
But is he right?
Yeah, it does kind of paint a picture of just kind of what a difficult position they are in. And it's while Ironwood is giving this speech that is the shot that I was referring to earlier, that kind of goes in conjunction with the shot you were talking about, Beau, where like Clover and Winter kind of look at each other while Nora's going off, and it kind of gives this sense of like they're kind of being like, well, she's kind of right.
How could she say something so controversial but so true?
Yeah. And while Ironwood is going off, both Clover and Winter look down and away. So, like, and it really kind of, and it's not anybody else. It's just the two of them, and it really like, it really gave me the sense that they're seriously questioning their leader here, but they also feel like they can't speak up because he's their commanding officer.
If he gives an order, they have to follow it.
Right. So I just thought.
But Winter's always. I mean, Winter's been shown to voice her opinions. However, when Ironwood gives her that definitive like no, then she respects that. But she's never been shown to be the kind of person to just not say anything.
I mean, I think that what I kind of interpret that as, especially with the the conversation that Winter had with Weiss the other episode, I feel like Weiss really started putting some seeds of doubt in Winter's mind.
Yeah, because they had a moment where she kind of looked down as well. But I kind of, and I said it in the podcast, is I interpreted that not as her questioning whether Ironwood was actually being honest with her or not, but making the decision, do I tell Weiss about the Winter Maiden?
Yeah, although we've
like,
now
I'm
seen that same behavior from Winter twice.
Yeah.
And Clover as well. And so I feel like, I think that I agree with you. I think that when Winter has an issue, she speaks up. But I feel like, I guess I interpreted this more with what like Clover and Winter were doing there. I guess I interpret that more as them trying to figure out whether or not they have an issue.
Yeah,
like
or
they're
decide,
not
like they're trying to pick their battles, and they're trying to decide if this is one of the battles they're wanting to speak up about.
Right.
Yeah, which ones do you dig in on, and which ones do you decide to live to fight another day?
Yeah. And that's when Ironwood's like, I want Robin in custody. We might offer her a deal if she's willing to cooperate. It's kind of, very like authoritative, almost authoritarian in the way that he's, delivering this order.
He does that.
Yeah, that's
I think that's one of
his.
That's one of his weak points, right? It's even if when he tries to do the right thing, when he's trying to do good, just the way, I don't know if it's because like he's a general and he's like a military guy, he's just giving orders and having them, be followed. But like everything he does is very heavy-handed, right? It's like, here's our problem. We're going to do this about it, and to heck with what everybody else thinks, right? This is what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
This is the and so he doesn't like. He's very blunt in the way he approaches problems.
Also, it's not like getting Robin into custody will fix his problem. He'll make her a martyr, even though she won't be dead. If he puts her in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah. Annika in the chat. We were saying earlier how it already feels like martial law.
Well, I
but
looked
also there's a curfew. Those people were out after curfew.
Yeah,
That's
well,
why
I looked it up. Is so the actual definition of martial law is where the military basically creates their own laws that supersede what the normal laws are. So realistically, right now, before they instate martial law, everything is essentially the same. They're just not allowed to have public gatherings anymore, and they have to be home at a certain hour. Other
Mhm.
than that, though, they still have all of their same rights. They still have all of the same rules to follow. You know, don't steal, don't murder, that kind of shit. However,
Yeah.
martial law could make literally being outside of your house at all illegal.
Yeah.
You know, like they could effectively imprison everyone in their own homes until they decide that it's, you know, martial law doesn't need to be like put forward anymore.
Well,
Right.
So
and the question is, what does martial law look like in a kingdom where the lead general of the military has, you know, 2 seats on the council, where the you know, the chairman of your government is, you know, supposedly a coalition government of multiple politicians, right? But the head of that body is also the head of the military. What does martial law look like under that, right?
Well,
Because it's
Not in
gonna.
this case.
to,
Not in this
to
case.
respond again to you, Annika, we're agreeing with you on the fact that it basically already is martial law. They're just not calling it that officially yet.
It's not quite there yet. It, it's
Um,
it's close, but not quite.
it's stupidly close.
Yeah,
Um,
but
Stupidly close.
there's a reason that we distinguish between the two, because if we were to say this is martial law and then they were to declare martial law, there would be at least a tangible difference.
yeah,
mhm.
because what they're doing right now doesn't fall under the category of martial law.
Yeah.
Yet.
Um, so basically, yeah, he says he wants Robin in custody. And you know, he gives his order, and Winter and Clover say yes, sir, as does Ren.
Yeah, I like this. I have a really big point to say about this, if you don't mind me going on here.
Go for it.
Absolutely.
For I'm going to take a different approach to this than I think some people will. I'm taking this as Ren and Nora's first fight,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're in a relationship, you are obviously going to have points where you disagree, and I am so glad that we're getting to it now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've definitely put Nora and Ren on opposite sides of this issue, which is gonna be
And
fun to watch the fireworks.
it's
Mhm.
also, I honestly feel like, you know, a lot of people have been, it kind of really sucks because like everyone last episode was kind of like, yo, Ren, what's your deal? You're being kind of funky, what's going on? But the word that I've been seeing thrown around a lot in the last 24 hours is bootlicker. And
What?
it really kind of makes me sad to see how quickly people are turning against Ren, just because realistically, Ironwood's the only one that's got a fucking plan. Like,
I'm
he's probably
Mhm.
tired of people just being like, well, we don't know what we should do, but we shouldn't do what you're doing. Like,
yeah,
Mhm.
like
and so I feel like he's just tired of not knowing what to do. And so he's just like, you know what? As long as Ironwood's the only one with a plan, I'm going to follow him.
and that's what I
Like,
agree with. Like,
yeah.
logically speaking, if I were in Ren's shoes, or if I was anybody in that room's shoes, I would be trying to think of a conceivable alternate plan, but until I had one, I'd be saying yes, sir.
Yep.
That's the
Mhm.
logical thing to do, because saying, wait, 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 stop, we need to stop doing what you're doing, but we don't have another plan,
If you
is
don't have an
worthless.
alternative to offer, yeah, then what's the point?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
agree with Ren wholeheartedly, and all of you call it bootlickers, take some time and think about it, please. There's a lot more depth to it than just him being a yes man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also really excited to see where this is going, because I like, you know, we were complaining last week about how out of nowhere this fight seemed, and now I feel like, I mean, I don't think that this solves the problem of the fight between Ren and Nora last week feeling uh like it came just out of the blue, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that moving forward, this scene is going to provide more context for
Yeah.
why Ren and Nora are kind of at odds right now.
And I'm glad they are. That this is going to be something that will define their relationship for at least the rest of the volume, and at most the rest of the show.
This is the episode where we're starting to see the teams kind of falling apart. And doing things that are opposing other halves of their team, their partners. You know,
as we see with later in the episode when Blake and Yang decide to go a little bit out of bounds.
So moving into that now. We have this great scene between Yang and Blake, and before we get into, I know what we all want to talk about with this scene. I want to pose a question to you guys. So first and foremost, they send out multiple decoy trucks to lure Robin in, and Yang and Blake are in one of them, and they have this conversation, and Yang brings up the fact that, you know, man, like, are we really doing the right thing by not telling Ironwood what we know about Salem? And I want to bring essentially back around the question that I proposed to you guys in episode 2, which was, do you think Ruby made the right decision by playing her cards close to the chest and not telling Ironwood? Because now, as we're seeing things develop and we're seeing how that decision has played out, do you guys, because I think all of us at the time were like, you know, well, no, like what Ruby did makes sense, right? Do we all still agree with that assessment, or do you think that at this point Ruby is making a mistake by continuing?
I think we all agreed.
Everybody, but there's somebody I want to hear from first, and they're the most curious person. I want to hear from you, Zaz.
Yeah.
What do you think, Zaz? Because I can pretty much predict everybody else on this team. You're the wild card.
Wow. Okay. Put me on the spot. Are we just talking about like the scene in general with Blake and Yang, or like?
Do you think, knowing what we know now as the series has progressed, do you think that Ruby's decision to not tell Ironwood what they know about Salem, the fact that Salem is immortal, do you think that that Ruby made the right decision, especially seeing where that decision has gotten them?
I don't think she's made the right decision, because it's all, I feel like it's kind of setting up like all of this, like telling the world, you know, we gotta fight this thing, we gotta all band together, and just to realize, why are we fighting? So it's like she has that information that they don't know, and they think they could beat her, but she should have told them. I don't know. I feel like she really should have said something.
I think initially, like, I agree now that I think that she should have told him. I think initially, I think she still made the right decision at the time. But I think that she has, her time to tell him has expired. Her opportunity to tell him has expired, because now if she tells him, I think it's going to send him into a really downward spiral of despair.
You can't trust anyone after that.
Honestly?
Yeah.
Well,
if he hasn't figured out already that they're hiding something from him. Like, if he genuinely, that's not where they're going with this, and he genuinely thought that they told him everything, A, he's a fucking fool, and B, like, it's gonna shatter what little trust he had in them. And I think it may even push him to potentially lock them up.
Well,
I disagree.
We had the scene with the awkward hug between him and Crow, right? We were like, oh, he's definitely planning a bug on Crow, right? And then we see Crow and Ruby talking about. So, assuming that that's what was happening there, then he should already know. So if he doesn't at this point, I'm a little confused, right? Because it seems like that would be the thing to do, right? If these people walk into your office and they're like, "Hey, we're you kind of get the sense they're not telling you the whole story." He should have been able to figure it out at this point.
You know,
one of the things I have a note on that. I'm sorry that I cut you off, Brian, but I have a note on that. I'm going to a thought that I had that I would hope would be the case is that RWBY eventually tells him, or the secret is spilled by someone in Team RWBY, and he's like,
Yep.
I know. And I'm glad that you trust
Mm-hmm.
me enough now to tell me. Would be
Yeah.
hopefully the point.
But
Yeah.
I feel the more the season progresses, the more I feel like he genuinely doesn't know.
Yeah, it's
Because he
looking
wouldn't
that
be
way.
acting this way to just keep up that facade.
Well,
He
and
would be acting with the knowledge of, oh, we can't beat her.
Mm-hmm.
so how would his plan change though? Is like because that's
Well,
like, you know, what is his plan going to accomplish if he tells everybody about Salem and then they're gonna fight a
Well-
thing that he already knows that they can't fight? Like what?
So I think that, here's my thinking on it, right? I think the best thing to the best way to go about this would be, because I do think that at this point, like, I don't really know what Ruby's doing. Like, Ruby seems to be just biding her time. If I were Ruby, after I had made that initial decision to be, nope, not gonna trust Ironwood with this info just yet, before after making that decision and executing on it, the very first thing that I'd do is I'd go back and I'd talk with my teammates about whether or not this Amity project is a good idea and whether or not they need to be doing something to keep it from happening. But it seems like they're not doing that. It doesn't. We've never seen them have this conversation before, and the way Ruby's been talking about it, it's almost like she's resigned herself to it, to the fact that everybody is going to know, the whole entire world is going to know about Salem. And I feel like resigning yourself to that fact that, okay, Ironwood's going to let everybody know about Salem and not provide, like, and not do anything to stop that from happening, but also at the same time not provide him with all the information that he needs to make the best decision possible, is negligent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe-
realistically, the only other way. So we know that, you know, they posed this question last episode: is Ozpin can't destroy Salem? Maybe someone else can. The really interesting thing though is, aside from fighting her, the only actual way they have a chance against her would be to unite humanity. And the only way you're gonna unite humanity is by filling them in.
I
so-
agree. And
So here's something that I guess this would be my plan, right? Is I would go and I'd fill Ironwood in and say, this is the information we have. We're sorry that we've kept it from you. You know, this news has proved traumatic. Jean may have put a hole in the wall. So, you know, we're like, you know, we've been very careful about who we've been telling this information to, but we trust you. We feel like you need to know this information. Our plan is this: let's take the Relic of Knowledge, and there is actually one question left. Let's ask that question, and let's reword Ozpin's question from "How do I defeat Salem?" to "How can anyone defeat Salem?"
How can Salem be defeated?
How can
Or something.
Salem be defeated? Right. And see if we get an answer there, and then, you know, if the answer is good or bad, you know, we'll figure it out from there. Right?
Sure.
But we need more information. That would be my plan on how to proceed.
see,
and
I agree with that. I think that whether Ironwood knows actually is irrelevant. Crazy as that seems, because the question Ozpin asked the genie was wrong, or at least flawed, as the case may be.
There were too many gray areas and vague
Exactly.
answers. that
Too many
she gave.
variables.
So, telling Ironwood the response to that question, at least in my opinion, it serves no purpose. Sure, maybe concealing a fact, but since that fact is so flawed, what is the point? Now, of course, it's a trust thing, telling him everything would be nice, but overall, him knowing doesn't do anybody any particular good. They still have to get the Amity Coliseum into the sky. The rest of the plan would still have to proceed as normal, and due to the flawed nature of the question, they could not discount the possibility that there is some way to stop, destroy, or contain Salem. So that doesn't necessarily change the plan at all. All the steps
Annika,
of
I don't
the
think
plan
anybody's
still need to happen.
befriending Salem.
I would befriend Salem. Her boyfriend died.
So so let me ask you an off-topic question, Beau. Would you like Salem to step on you like you want Winter to step on you?
Wow. Listen, I don't want Winter to step on me. That's very weird. I feel very conflicted about that.
You basically just asked Beau if they want to step on themselves.
Yeah, which no. I want throwback to that time that I had throwback to that time that I had all of my game statuses set to step on me, Raven, until Zaz noticed it.
Oh no.
What you calls it? I saw someone in chat, can't remember who it was. Someone in chat was like, "Oh yeah, Ruby Silver Eyes. The Silver Eyes are not an end-all, win-all solution for starters."
Saw that with Swimmy Jimmy.
Yeah, we saw that with Swimmy Jimmy. It slowed him down. It didn't stop him. So of course, it could just be where the emotion is coming from at the moment or whatever. She might not have just been in the right frame of mind because from what we know, the Wyvern's still fucking frozen. So like,
she didn't believe hard enough.
She didn't. Yeah, she needs to believe harder.
Multiple silver eyes.
Oh my god! Yeah.
Line them up. Stare at Salem. Boom.
Stare at Salem.
So
that's it.
So this is an actual theory, and then I'm gonna share my crack theory after this.
Okay.
So my actual theory: could Ruby Silver Eyes be amplified by Jean's semblance?
Ooh.
A good thought.
My crack theory: Jean and Fiona go to Salem, and Fiona just
Nani?
Just put her in the pocket dimension.
Yeah.
That's the new definition of the big suck.
The big suck.
I think Jean amplifying his aura would really, really help Ruby.
Yeah, I think so too.
Just amplifying the aura, because that's actually a really interesting way to see it, because you saw that he's improving himself. Mm-hmm. So
his recovery time is getting damn near close to Hazel's, it looks like.
So the follow-up that I have on that theory, Beau, is he would need an exceptional amount of juice to amplify it, or at least to my belief, where it would even do any particular type of damage.
Nora.
This whole thing sounds like, like the first time you go in to play Minecraft and you discover redstone. And you're just like, oh man, what kind of crazy contraptions can I make with this? I'm going to put this block next to this block and then tie them together and see what happens. Like, that's what Jean's semblance became for us. It's just redstone powering everything now.
You're not entirely wrong, because I think if Jean's semblance is like the amplification of auras and semblances, then maybe he can learn to transfer them from people, like to bring them to himself and use them like as a through point.
I gotta address something Annika said here, saying, is Silver Eyes fueled by aura? Silver Eyes isn't a semblance. Silver Eyes is absolutely fueled by aura, because we know that the Maiden's powers are fueled by aura.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know
magic is
yeah, we know that
aura.
we know that their powers are tied to their aura. That's why they want to transfer. They want to do the other big suck, and wanted to transfer the Fall Maiden's powers to Pyrrha, and now what they're planning to do with Winter.
Right. We know that the magic powers transfer with aura. We don't know that they're fueled by aura.
Well, I feel like it's a pretty safe assumption to assume that aura, and semblance are a remnant of
Oh.
the magic gifts that the gods left behind.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
feel like they're like otherwise they wouldn't exist at all. So I feel like I feel like they're tied together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perhaps I'd like to see more. I'd like to hold out the possibility, because the
That's my
epic amount of
theory.
power that was being put out when, maiden powers were being used either suggests one of two things in that regard. Either one, being a maiden exceptionally amplifies the level of aura, or perhaps the level of aura efficiency to a degree, um, or that people who have maiden powers just train and become badasses.
Ultra Godzilla fan, who are they to judge Remnant? Creating it doesn't give you complete power over it. I think any parent will tell you otherwise.
Yeah, any parent. I will also say, in regards to Gamble, Raven and Cinder's eyes continued to burn. Their aura didn't actually break; it was flickering. The only time we saw any of their auras break was when Raven like Fusrodod Cinder off the edge of the thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, there's always been kind of a loose distinction between when in Volume 3 they were like, oh, so what if I told you magic existed? And everyone was like, but isn't that what semblances are? Like, there's always been kind of a loose definition of maiden powers being magic and semblances being. I mean, like, the maiden powers we've seen are all elemental, like, oh, look, she froze some leaves, she shot some lightning, there's some fire involved. And then, like, we literally have a girl that's half lamb suck a truck into another dimension in her hand. I mean, what counts as magic?
That's kind of how I felt about the line that Weiss had in Volume 5, where it's like, I mean, we have semblances and dust, but there's no such thing as magic. Like, it's like, do you not know, like, how capable you...
Well,
they have very hyper-specific superpowers, is what I like to call their semblances.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
like,
but for them,
this is a person...
magic is defined differently than it is for us. And for the obvious
Clearly.
reason.
Magic is just science we don't understand yet.
I mean, she literally can Weiss can literally summon
Watch Dr. Stone. It's true.
Dead Grimm from the beyond that she killed at one point and control it. Like,
she's
yeah,
a
that's not magic though. That's just my semblance.
Yeah, he's
Anyway,
totally a necromancer.
Bumblebee has a good talk in the car.
Yes, they do.
It's like car talk when one person's driving and one person's in the passenger seat, except they're in the back of the car.
I think the part that we all want to talk about.
Well, real quick, just because I forgot to mention it, and I highlighted it, and then we skipped past it, and I completely forgot. Is one of the lines that really stood out to me in the previous scene with Ironwood and everyone and Nora going off, is that Ironwood actually said something that Ilya has said in the past, which was, we've all had to make sacrifices for the greater good. And I like
yikes.
word for word, verbatim, same line.
Yikes.
And so I was just like, oof, okay, throwback.
Yeah, that's. I think it's gonna bite him in the butt at some point.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna.
It bit Ilya in the butt. She got her ass kicked.
So word for word, I think the part in the Bumblebee scene that we all want to talk about. Blake says, keeping secrets, taking lives, it makes you wonder how far we're going to have to go to keep doing the right thing. And Yang responds with, Blake, we did what we had to do.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, I damn near jumped out of my seat when I heard that line and was like, thank God!
I can confirm.
Finally talking about it.
Absolutely.
Because all of us have been complaining for weeks that Yang and Blake have to talk about what they did to Adam.
It's like they haven't acknowledged it for a while, and I was very confused. Like, I was like, they're calm, they're going out dancing, they're just having a swell time, and it's like, you guys killed someone.
Maybe talk about it.
Are you guys okay? Do you need to sit down and have some coffee, talk about it? Like, are you shaking? Are you all right? But they finally had that talk.
I really feel like it doesn't necessarily matter that it was Adam that they killed, I feel like the notion of taking a life is what really shook them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look,
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
honestly,
if anybody
like,
deserved it, it was Adam. But
if anyone deserved it, it was Adam, absolutely. But and so I feel like it still is like, it's not necessarily that it was Adam that I regret killing. I just regret that I had to kill, like,
Yeah.
because I don't want to do that.
look, we all know what Blake and Yang need. It's couples therapy, okay?
So I mean, but this kind of comes down because we've been talking a lot about how, especially last week, about how weird like them pushing Bumblebee is kind of felt.
Mhm.
And this conversation was really everything that I wanted, because
Yes.
the what we've had previously, like you were saying, Zaz, them going out dancing, them laughing, them hanging out together, them blushing at each other, like that stuff.
The cute
like,
couple things.
The cute couple things, like, those are all trivial things that don't, like I was saying, don't really tell us what's going on in the heads of the characters, right? It's showing us it's showing us what's going on without any context. And this conversation was what I, in my opinion, consider to be a real Bumblebee scene. A scene where we get inside the heads of the characters. They have meaningful conversation that has bearing on the characters and the plot. This was an excellent scene. It's what I have been waiting for since the first episode of Volume 7. Kind of wish that the conversation happened a little earlier, but that's fine.
It happened.
It happened.
And it's not over yet either. I don't think that we're done addressing that issue. This was it sounded a lot like this is maybe the first, like, they've been kind of scared to talk about it. And this is kind of the first time that they've addressed, oh, yeah, that we, like, that killed that guy and he, like, fell off a cliff and stuff. Like, maybe we should...
I mean, he was kind of a dick.
He was kind of a dick. But, like, maybe we should talk about it. Like, this is, I think, like, the first step towards coming to terms with what they had to do.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
We're not done with this conversation by any means.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So... that was a big scene, and I think all of us were super happy that it finally happened. So there's also this great bit where, because it's really, Blake is really upset about these drastic measures that they're taking. She doesn't want to have to take any more drastic measures like they took with Adam. Right. And that, I think, not to jump ahead too far, but I feel like really the entire theme of this episode was, do the ends justify the means if it means losing your humanity? And that's exactly what Yang and Blake were talking about. Essentially, not wanting to go that far, not wanting to have to go that far for, quote unquote, the greater good ever again.
I really loved the parallels with this scene, actually. This scene, for me anyways, had an incredible parallel with the Adam short, actually, for me. Because in the Adam short, we have Blake expressing, like, her like, doubt and disagreement with, like, whatever their current situation is with using violence, with taking lives and everything, and that she doesn't want to have to do that anymore. And Adam's response was, what, do you want me to just abandon our cause like your parents? It was to gaslight her. And here we have Blake in this exact same scene saying, I don't know if we're going about this the right way. Like, I'm really questioning what we're doing, our actions at the very least. Maybe not our motives, but our actions. And Yang's response was, then maybe we shouldn't. Like, I really appreciated that they showed that difference between the two of them.
Yeah,
she's listening to
she's
point,
listening
basically.
to what Blake has to say, and that was actually the next thing that I wanted to bring up, was the fact that they're collaborating and listening to each other like a real couple should, right? If one of the people has an issue, you don't go, no, that's stupid, shut up. You know, you
Well,
go,
in a good
okay,
relationship.
let's talk about that, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that that Blake was actually able to kind of sway Yang around and go like, okay, then let's try things your way, right?
Yeah.
And basically be like, instead of ambushing Robin, let's try to talk with her, and try to bring her, try some diplomacy here.
Yeah.
And
Not
I
the
think
iron
also,
fist of.
Yeah.
I think it also says a lot because remember back in Volume 3 when Yang got framed for, breaking Mercury's leg and whatnot, that was the scene that really, Blake doubted her so heavily and, was comparing her to Adam. And I feel like this scene really kind of finally closes that door of like how different the two of them are. And I just, even if it's never touched on again, like I really appreciated, like story wise, how it kind of came full circle. Where here we were, 4 volumes ago now, basically. We had Blake doubting Yang, wondering if her and Adam might have been, two sides of the same coin. And then here we are, with Yang, who was normally the first person to charge in, to be not necessarily a violent person, but to beat people up, kind
To
of
resort to punching things.
punch first, ask questions while punching.
Yeah.
Not to quote League of Legends, not to quote Vi, but yeah, and so now she's the one that's suggesting peace, by extending an olive branch instead of trying to fight her.
Yeah, and something else, like also, in the parallel department, I want to draw parallels to the other, really serious Bumblebee scene from Volume 2, where Yang and Blake sit down and Yang is like, yo, you need to slow down. That was a place where Blake was having an issue, or moreover, Yang was having an issue with what Blake was doing. Yang confronted her about it and managed to convince Blake to, do the better thing, right? And so I kind of love how this time around it's Blake coming to Yang about an issue and Blake convincing Yang to do the better thing.
She's learned as a character, right?
Yeah.
This whole isolationist, I'm gonna do it all alone, I can't trust anybody kind of thing. She's starting to break out of that.
And this is not, not to rehash it too hard, but this to me, is really, this to me builds more legitimacy to Bumblebee being canon and Yang and Blake being a couple than any of the other little things that we've seen earlier on in the season.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, I absolutely agree.
So yeah, but anyways, they just so happen to be the transport that Robin tries to ambush.
Well,
Lucky Robin.
You skipped an entire scene.
Well, we could jump to the scene with Robin and then get back to the.
What was the scene that I skipped?
You skipped us finding out about where Penny's soul came from.
Oh yeah,
but it's not entirely artificial.
You're right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
by the way, Penny's soul isn't artificial.
and the fact that they are in fact able to retrieve footage from Penny's head via the weird USB plug that she has in the back of her head through her bow.
I mean, I guess that's useful.
I just hope it's 3.0.
Right in her Xbox on-off button.
Yep.
That is also like the cutest thing ever.
Nah, Penny's super high tech. It's gonna be Thunderbolt 3.
At least.
But
the eye Penny.
And
oh my god.
So they're talking about Penny's
Rooster Teeth,
aura.
get on a Siri replacement, eye Penny.
Eye Penny.
Oh yes.
Just Penny narrating everything.
Penny will absolutely blow Siri and Cortana out of the water.
Penny, that can be the new VR. So we have Scooter in RWBY Abridged. We'll have Penny on everyone's phones in the VR shorts.
Penny is best AI.
But no. So we find out that the Atlas security code and whatnot, the Atlas code, not the Mantle code, is only accessible to a handful of people. including, as we find out through Weiss, the Schnee-Dust Company. And
Yay.
Weiss seems to be, you can see the gears really turning, and she's, something is going on here.
Mhm.
Yeah,
there's
what's my
something
dad
going
up
on.
to?
Yeah, what's Jacques ass up to?
Mhm.
And
Which
yeah,
we
so I
already
thought that
know.
was
He's
really...
you know.
Well, yeah, we know, but I really like that Weiss is smart enough. She's like, if anyone's gonna know what he's up to or figure it out, it's gonna be her in Winter.
Oh,
Like,
Annika,
honestly.
you right. Not Cortana. Salem.
Salem. Oh my
Oh
god.
yes.
Oh god.
The real big sad earlier was me going out and talking to my roommates, and because they were playing the Master Chief Collection, and I was like, oh man, back when Michelle Rodriguez did a bunch of like background character voices in Halo, and they were like, oh well, who was Cortana? And I was like, oh, it's Salem's voice actress, and they were like, Salem, and I was like, yeah, the big bad from RWBY. She narrates the first episode, and then they figured it out in Volume 3 that she was the big bad, and they were like, Beau, we just started Volume 3, and I was like, fuck.
No! Oh no!
Yes.
What have you
Spoiler.
done?
To be
like
fair,
such a
they're
dick.
4 years behind.
Oh
Yeah.
no!
I felt so bad though.
No, Beau.
I felt so bad.
You should.
Oh, by the way, Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Um,
like what, an extra 20 years. Okay, you have to know that by.
So,
But Beau,
So-
at least ask like where they are in the series first.
well, I heard them watching Volume 3 the other night, so I figured they probably finished it, but I guess
Ugh.
Oh no.
I have
So-
learned never to
But-
assume anymore.
As long as we're spoiling things.
Oh god.
Actually, in RWBY Abridged, Blake and Salem are the same person.
Blalem.
Because
God.
Nicole. I'm kidding. That's not actually what's happening.
That's not what's happening at all.
Yeah.
So we find out that Penny is one of a kind, and the reason she's one of a kind is because Pietro gave up some of his aura to be able to power Penny.
Is that why he can't walk? Do we think? Is it
Maybe.
like, are they related?
Oh.
No, I'd like to. He already can't walk. I think in the photograph.
Well, no, he was just sitting in a chair.
Was he?
Is it a wheelchair or is it?
No,
let me
it was
see.
it was just a chair from what I saw.
Okay. Because my thought was like, oh, he already like couldn't walk anyway, giving him his soul didn't really. But okay, I can see the point.
I think it's a chair with. Does it have wheels on it? I don't know.
No, it's got like feet, which is real. I'm sorry, that's not smart design. This dude's supposed to be smart. Come on, man, wheels. You made it so much harder.
No. It's an all-terrain chair. What do you mean? Like,
Yeah, he doesn't
That's
need
brilliant.
ramps or anything.
It's an ATC.
Although-
It's an all-terrain chair.
while we're HEC.
No,
while
it looks like a desk chair.
Spin off from the AT-AT.
It looks like the kind of chair that your doctor. It's almost like one of those stool chairs. Like it's a stool with like a back to it. Is what it looks like. It doesn't look like
Well,
a
they're-
chair though.
they're wearing lab coats, so that's just I can confirm, wearing a lab coat myself at my job. Like, we all sit in chairs like that. It's just not not how that works. But
So yeah, that was some interesting stuff. Can we move on to the next scene now?
Well,
Yeah.
also,
only after we
learned
remarked
one
that
thing
Dr.
from that.
Watts was in that picture.
Oh yes, that is
Yes,
true.
Dr. Watts also has the lab coat and a turtleneck, and
Watts has worked on Penny.
I
Not
immediately when
necessarily.
Pietro picks up that picture and he's like holding his thumb over the one
Mhm.
guy who's really tall, I'm like, that's Watts, right?
Yeah,
This guy-
same.
Of
come
course
on.
it was.
Like,
Mhm.
of course it's. I would no surprise when it reveals Mr. Mustache under his thumb.
Yeah.
So that doesn't bode well for the theories about Penny being hacked, and like that Watts was saving that card for later in this fight. Yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Annika,
little-
Annika, he gave part of his aura twice.
I mean, Tom Luton, she did die though. Like they literally said she died in Volume 3. They just brought her back. Like
Yeah.
Considering
Yeah.
that she is part robot, death is kind of interesting for her.
But she has a soul. She has a soul.
So he
Does this
gave
unit have
another
a
piece of
soul?
his soul, but that is a really important fact though, is that she can only die a certain number of times. She's not immortal. They can't infinitely bring her back.
Yeah. It makes me a little scared about how blasé they're being with all, like, yeah, she died, but now we'll just bring her back, no problem.
So
Like,
I mean, I'm actually really happy that they've done this because it means that Penny getting hurt still has stakes.
yeah.
Right. Well, it makes me worried about, because if we're right and Penny gets hacked and they have to fight Penny and like maybe they have to kill her or something, and Ruby was like, well, but we can just bring her back, and then he only has enough aura left, it seems, for maybe one more, call it resurrection. So is he, as Penny's parent, absolutely going to sacrifice himself to bring his kid back?
I think he would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's no question. But that would be it. That would.
So, death flags.
Here'd be an interesting thought, though. Would Ironwood let him?
I don't.
Yeah, I don't think Ironwood would have any say in it. Like, Ironwood could say no. He's just going to do it anyways.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that if Ironwood had the option, I don't think he would let him. Pietro is too valuable a scientist.
Before we have the inevitable comment of, what if Jean just replenishes? That's not how it works.
No.
That's not how it works. He's literally lowering the amount that his aura is able to refill to, because he's taking that and giving it to Penny so that
he's
can
giving
generate
her
aura,
his
period.
HP points.
Yes.
Yes.
He's lowering his max HP.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's literally what he's doing. Anyway, I know some of us have to get out of here soon, so we need to get to the next step now.
The scene that Brian wants to talk about.
Yeah, so Yang and Blake super luck out, and they're the they're the transport that Robin attacks.
Oh yes, because luck or plot.
Yeah. And they chase her down, and they try to get her to listen to them, and they're like, look, we have some things to tell you, and they manage to give her a little bit of info, and then we find out Robin's semblance, which is
a built-in bullshit detector.
As Yang says, it's pretty handy.
Oh
I want to talk about it real fast. I love the imagery of this scene where Robin is in the dark, and then she's brought into the light as she's finding things out, but then she willingly goes back into the dark again.
Yeah.
There's some good imagery there.
Good work, Rooster Teeth. So yeah, that was big. It definitely seems like we're going to be. It definitely seems like they've successfully won over Robin to a certain extent, and she's willing to humor them, which is really good. But I'm sure that she's going to be back soon, demanding more answers.
# let Robin say bullshit.
Well, she literally tells them at the end of that conversation as she's running back into the shadows, right? She's like, "Well, I'm not going to stop until I know everything. Like, you guys can tell me, oh, we can't say everything yet. It's got to be top secret." She's like, "Well, I'm not going to stop until I find out." So you've opened the door to me knowing there's more going on here. I'm gonna do everything I can to go through that door, like, whether you want me to or not.
Yeah. So, in any case, we find out that we're Ozpin or Oscar and Ironwood are hanging out down in the vault, and find out that the Staff of Creation is actually what keeps Atlas in the air. And Oscar
totally
gives Ironwood a pep talk where he's like, "Yo, like, I feel like you're fucking up, my dude.
You're not doing the listening very much, dude."
Yeah. You need more
listen.
with the listening.
There were a lot of really good scenes in this episode, but I think this is probably my favorite. Honestly, like this little heart to heart between him and Oscar.
Yeah, this one, honestly, this scene and the scene with Yang and Blake is probably tied for me. But yeah, I think I might be leaning a little bit harder on this toward this one. It was really, really good. And I really like once again, I was complaining last week about not being able to get into the heads of our characters. This episode was literally nothing but getting into the heads of our characters.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff to infer. The way Ironwood was acting, like we were saying earlier, it really seems like he's obsessed with beating Salem. Absolutely nothing else matters to him. Doesn't matter if he needs to throw away his humanity. He basically says as much, where he's like, that, maybe that's what makes her so strong, is the fact that she doesn't have that humanity, that she's willing to, do whatever it takes.
That's not a danger sign at all. No.
I would draw some parallels here to like Cersei from Game of Thrones, but none of it's a different show. But I got some serious Cersei vibes here. Like he's definitely, he's like, my weakness is my ability to feel things. Maybe I should just feel things less. It's like, I don't know if that's not good.
Healthy, my dude.
Because Oscar's telling him the exact opposite. He's like, dude, you gotta listen to people. You gotta, even your military, underlings, even Clover and Winter are starting to question what you're doing here, and here you are, and he's where the path I see him going on is like, to heck with all that, to heck what you think. I'm just gonna do what I think is right, and really just double down on his stubbornness, and that's going to get everyone into a lot of trouble, I think.
Yeah.
Not the least of which is Ironwood himself.
I do like what Oscar says at the end, though, where he says, I think the thing that you need to do is to sit down with the people that you're most afraid to and talk with them. And funny enough, guess what happens? They've been invited to dinner at the Schnee Mansion to discuss Ironwood's seat on the council.
His surrender from the council.
Yeah, basically. So that is where the episode ends, and I feel like, Beau, you've got 3 minutes here, so rapid fire predictions. Everybody, go.
I was just getting ready to play the what you calls it, the air raid.
No, don't give away the bit.
It's okay. I can be like 1 minute late. Predictions. Ooh, someone else go. I have to think about that one.
You have 3 minutes.
Well, Annika says more of a witty baby boy coming up. Whitley Schnee. Yep, we're gonna. I think we're gonna see some Mama Schnee.
Yeah, we have
at
Mama
a
Schnee.
state dinner type of thing. Yeah.
I really want to see Weiss having to do a crash course. Weiss and Winter doing a crash course on how to be prim and proper for a dinner.
And Ruby's just what is this even? Why do you have 8 forks? What?
Why are there so many different spoons? You just use one spoon.
Why does this fork only have 3 prongs?
Why does this fork only have one? Oh wait, that's a knife.
That's a knife. This one-time fork. What is this?
Yeah, there you go. I'm really excited to see. Like, as crazy as it is, because I know that it's like, bad place for Weiss and Winter. I'm really kind of excited to see Weiss and Winter going back home and seeing how they behave, as much as I hate to say it, in their kind of natural element. Like, because we've only ever seen Weiss really in that element. So,
well, especially now that they've like made this connection of like, oh, we're traveling the same path, kind of, maybe going about it different ways, but like they've both left the family kind of at this point. So like, seeing that dynamic now, like that's gonna be
yeah.
It's gonna be fun.
What do you think, Zaz?
Food Fight 2.0?
Oh no!
Yes.
Yes.
Oh no!
Oh, that'll be great.
Yes.
Oh, that would be amazing.
More swordfish, please.
Food fight in Schnee Manor.
Oh, that would be so elegant and grand.
That would be like, that's like the Atlas equivalent of like, meet me in a McDonald's parking lot at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
For an ass kicking.
And then Glinda comes to clean it all up again.
Oh my god.
After Beacon fell, Glenda got a job as the Schnee family maid.
She replaced Klein. I want to see Klein again. I want to know that Klein is okay, that he hasn't been like fired or whatever.
Yeah. I don't think that we're gonna get it in this next episode, and honestly, I don't think we're gonna get it at all. But the nuts and bolts bullshit that I'm on makes me really want to have a scene where Ruby goes and talks to Penny and is like, Penny, are you okay? You've been through some shit.
Yeah, that's fair. Probably not this episode.
Yeah.
What I want to see, because they took the time to give them new outfits, new jams. I want to see them in some formal attire, not their hunter's gear. That's what I would like to see.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would really
I
like to see
swear to
that.
God, if Blake wears a tux.
Nut.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know what I don't know what to tell you people. Women in suits and tuxes.
That's his
Winter's
thing.
already like GG good shit.
I've
Winter
discovered that.
in like her dress blues, her military out, formal attire.
Oh God, Winter in dress blues would be so good.
I discovered that shit watching Fate Zero with Saber in a suit.
Saber in her suit.
There you go.
The only thing better than Arturia in her suit is Mordred in her suit. Yeah, no, I want some formal dress attire. Yeah, Jean in a dress 2.0.
Yeah.
Oh no! Oh no!
Brilliant.
No.
And I want to be the one to point it out that this next episode is the last episode of the year before the hiatus.
Yeah.
So some shit's gonna probably go down.
You think there's
They
gonna
love
be
to keep us on a cliffhanger.
Oh yeah, I think
cliffhanger ending?
we saw Salem amassing her terrifying army of flying monkeys.
Yeah.
So
I think the flying monkeys are gonna make an appearance, invade Schnee Manor.
And we know that Salem or Jen Taylor was recording recently. We know that Jessica Negri was recording recently.
Oh God.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
It's all coming to a head.
Yep.
It's happening.
they're gonna do it again, boys. They're gonna come in, swoop in, fuck shit up, and then make us wait another week.
Yep.
Well, y'all
Okay.
wanted last podcast to see Whitley discover his semblance. Invading
might
Schnee
just-
Manor might.
That would do it. So
That'd
who's
do it.
next? Who's next?
I think everybody's gone.
Yeah.
I'd say the only prediction I have is there's a moment in that scene with Ironwood and Oscar talking where they mention casually, oh yeah, by the way, the staff of creation is what's keeping the city afloat.
Yeah,
And
that
then
wasn't a plot
they're
point
like,
at all.
oh yeah, by the way, it can only keep one thing afloat at a time. It was like, that's why we thought, hey, let's make a satellite and use a lot of dust to do it. They're gonna have to like sink the city to get this satellite into the air with the staff of creation.
Oh, of course they are.
Just saying that right now. Of course they are.
Yeah,
So-
the problem with that is, where the city came from is where Mantle is currently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So-
hope they land it not on top of Mantle.
They have some
would be-
clearance, just not a lot.
Now, see, the real question is with the staff, can they be like, okay, lower, or is it just you turn it off and hope for the best?
Yeah. It just drops.
Because that I feel like is a little problematic. Maybe move away a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably gonna be like maybe they could do that, but they have like limited time. So they're like, okay, either we do this now or we don't do it at all. So just yank the staff out and.
Think of the importance of that though is if they are able to move Atlas to the side and set it down so it's not floating anymore, Atlas and Mantle would then be equals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're literally
Atlas-
on the same playing field.
Yeah, Atlas
Both
would no
metaphorically
longer
and otherwise.
be towering over Mantle anymore.
Yeah.
So I think
Well,
that's really important. But
think-
anyways, guys, I know that we're heading into the home stretch here. I really have to go because I have to go finish recording Nondescript Winter Holiday 2. So
Yup. Everybody say goodbye to Beau. Beau is going and working hard
Goodbye.
for all of y'all.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. I love you guys.
Bye,
Zaz,
Beau.
thanks for joining us. It was fun
Bye.
having you.
Yeah.
And I will catch you guys later. Until the next time. Boop, boop, boop,
Adios.
Bye. All right. Well, thank you all for watching. I think we're
That pretty much wraps it up for the day.
that pretty much wraps up the podcast. We will be back next week for the final episode of the year, and then we will also be going on a hiatus as well to match with RWBY, and then we will come back in the new year when RWBY starts back up. But yeah, both scared and looking forward to the next episode. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's been fun. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
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 Doo-doo, 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 doo-doo.